There comes a moment in every person's life when growth demands subtraction, not addition, not more strategies, not more goals, but removal. We are often taught to add skills, add habits, add ambition. But what if the real breakthrough is not in what you start doing, but in what you stop tolerating? Some behaviors quietly sabotage your destiny. They don't look dramatic. They don't announce themselves as dangerous. They feel normal, comfortable, familiar, and that is exactly why they are powerful. You cannot step into your highest self while holding on to behaviors that belong to your lowest moments. If you want transformation, you must first create space for it. Delete the behaviors that shrink your confidence. Delete the habits that waste your time. Delete the patterns that keep you stuck in cycles of regret. Delete the excuses that make mediocrity feel acceptable. Growth requires courage, and courage sometimes looks like walking away from distractions, from self-doubt, from toxic habits, and from the old version of yourself. The truth is this: your future is not being blocked by a lack of opportunity. It is being delayed by tolerated behavior. Every day you allow procrastination, negative thinking, comparison, inconsistency, or self-sabotage to remain in your life, you are silently voting against your own potential. But here is the empowering part. You have the authority to change it. You have the power to decide that today is the day you stop negotiating with weakness. You have the power to refuse behaviors that no longer serve you. You have the power to say, "This ends here." Transformation does not begin when circumstances change. It begins when standards change. When you raise your standards, your habits must rise to meet them. When you respect your future, your present behavior shifts. When you honor your potential, you no longer entertain what diminishes it. Deleting behaviors is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming intentional. It is about recognizing that every repeated action shapes your identity. And if you want a new life, you must build it with new patterns. The life you desire is not waiting for you to be more talented. It is waiting for you to be more disciplined, more aware, more selective about what you allow into your daily routine. You don't need a new dream, you need a new decision. Delete what drains you, delete what distracts you, delete what delays you, and watch how clarity, focus, confidence, and opportunity begin to flow into the space you created. Because when you remove what is misaligned, everything aligned begins to grow. Self-sabotage rarely looks dramatic. It does not arrive with warning signs or loud alarms. It shows up quietly, disguised as procrastination, overthinking, perfectionism, distraction, or even comfort. It whispers, "You can start tomorrow." It convinces you that waiting is harmless. But every time you delay your own growth, you silently approve a smaller version of your life. Self-sabotage is not a lack of ability. It is a lack of alignment between who you say you want to become and what you consistently allow yourself to do. The gap between your potential and your reality is often filled with tolerated behavior. And what you tolerate, you strengthen. When you constantly break promises to yourself, something dangerous happens. Your self-trust weakens. You begin to doubt your own words. You say you will wake up early, but you don't. You say you will start the project, but you postpone it. You say you will change, but you repeat the same pattern. Over time, your mind learns that your commitments are optional. That is self-sabotage in its purest form. Stopping self-sabotage begins with awareness. You must recognize the patterns that repeatedly hold you back. Ask yourself honestly, where do I consistently get in my own way? Is it fear of failure, fear of success, fear of being judged? Sometimes we sabotage progress not because we are incapable, but because growth feels unfamiliar. And the mind often prefers familiar discomfort over unfamiliar success. Self-sabotage also thrives on comfort. Comfort feels safe, predictable, and easy. But comfort rarely produces transformation. If you want a different life, you must become comfortable with discomfort. Growth will stretch you. It will demand effort. It will require discipline, but that temporary discomfort is far less painful than long-term regret. Another hidden form of self-sabotage is perfectionism. Waiting for the perfect time or the perfect plan is simply fear wearing a polished mask. Progress does not require perfection. It requires movement. The people who succeed are not those who wait for flawless conditions. They are the ones who act, adjust, and improve along the way. To stop self-sabotage, you must raise your standards. Decide that excuses are no longer acceptable. Decide that your goals matter more than your temporary moods. Decide that your future deserves discipline. When your standards rise, your behavior must follow. You must also rebuild self-trust. And self-trust is rebuilt through small, consistent wins. Start with manageable commitments and honor them. If you say you will work for 30 minutes, do it. If you say you will exercise 3 times this week, follow through. Each promise kept strengthens your confidence. Each action completed reinforces your identity as someone who shows up. Accountability is powerful in breaking self-sabotage. Write down your goals, track your habits, reflect on your progress weekly. Clarity reduces self-deception. When you see your patterns clearly, you can correct them intentionally. Most importantly, forgive yourself for past delays, but refuse to repeat them. Shame does not produce growth. Responsibility does. Take ownership of your choices without attacking your worth. You are not your past mistakes. You are the decisions you make from this moment forward. Self-sabotage ends when you stop negotiating with your potential. It ends when you decide that comfort will no longer control you. It ends when your actions align with your ambition. You deserve the life you envision. But you cannot sabotage your way into success. You must discipline your way into it. Stop tolerating behaviors that weaken your future. Replace them with actions that strengthen it. The moment you stop getting in your own way is the moment your life begins to move forward with clarity and power. Excuses are subtle, persuasive, and incredibly dangerous. They rarely sound like weakness. They sound reasonable, logical, justified. I'm too tired. I don't have enough time. I'll start next week. And little by little, these small explanations become permanent delays. The truth is not that you don't have time. The truth is that you have not decided that your growth is non-negotiable. Excuses protect comfort. They shield you from discomfort, responsibility, and risk, but they also shield you from success. Every time you choose an excuse over action, you reinforce a mindset that says circumstances control you, and the moment you believe that, you surrender your power. Successful people are not people without obstacles. They are people who refuse to let obstacles become permission to quit. Everyone is tired sometimes. Everyone faces distractions. Everyone experiences fear. The difference is not in the challenge. The difference is in the response. Excuses often hide behind emotion. When you feel unmotivated, you say, "I'm not in the mood." When you feel overwhelmed, you say, "This is too much." When you feel insecure, you say, "I'm not ready." But feelings are temporary. Decisions shape destiny. You cannot allow a temporary emotion to control a permanent opportunity. Removing excuses begins with radical ownership. Instead of saying, "I don't have time," say, "I didn't prioritize it." Instead of saying, "I can't," say, "I haven't trained myself yet." That language shift may feel small, but it changes everything. It forces you to face responsibility instead of hiding behind circumstance. Ownership is empowering. When you take responsibility, you take back control. You stop blaming the economy, your schedule, your background, your age, or your environment. You begin asking a better question: what can I do with what I have right now? Excuses also grow stronger when you compare yourself to others. You see someone ahead of you and assume they had advantages you did not, but comparison is another distraction. You do not need their path. You need consistency on your own path. Excuses weaken self-respect. Each time you justify an action, you quietly lower your standards, and lowered standards create lowered results. But when you limit excuses, even imperfect action builds confidence. Here is a simple principle: if it matters, schedule it. If it's scheduled, honor it. Treat your commitments to yourself the way you treat commitments to others. You would not casually miss an important meeting. Why casually miss your own growth? Removing excuses also requires discipline in small moments. Discipline when you don't feel like starting. Discipline when distractions appear. Discipline when progress feels slow. Those moments define you. There will never be a perfect time. Life will always be busy. There will always be reasons to delay, but there will also always be a reason to begin. The question is not whether excuses exist. The question is whether you will allow them to decide your future. When you remove excuses, something powerful happens. Clarity increases, momentum builds, confidence strengthens. You stop waiting for ideal conditions and start creating results with current ones. Excuses are easy. Ownership is powerful. If you truly want transformation, you must become allergic to excuses. Notice them, challenge them, replace them with action, because the life you desire is not built by explanations, it is built by execution. And the moment you stop explaining why you can't and start proving that you can, everything begins to change. Excuses are comfortable, they are polished, convincing, and often sound completely reasonable. That is what makes them dangerous. They don't feel like failure, they feel like justification. I'm too busy. I'm too tired. No isn't the right time. But every excuse, no matter how logical it sounds, quietly moves your goals further away. Excuses protect your comfort, but they steal your potential. The habit of making excuses is not about lack of ability. It is about avoiding discomfort. Growth requires effort. Discipline requires sacrifice. Success requires consistency, and excuses are the mind's way of avoiding those demands. They create temporary relief, but long-term regret. When you say, I don't have time, what you often mean is, I didn't prioritize it. When you say, I'm not ready, what you often mean is, I'm afraid. When you say, I'll start tomorrow, what you often mean is, this feels uncomfortable today. Excuses are emotional reactions disguised as logical reasoning. And if you allow emotions to control your actions, your progress will always be inconsistent. Removing excuses begins with radical ownership. Ownership means you stop blaming your schedule, your background, your circumstances, or other people. You stop pointing outward and start looking inward. You ask yourself one powerful question: what can I control right now? Ownership is not about self-criticism, it is about empowerment. The moment you accept responsibility for your actions, you take back your power. You are no longer waiting for the world to change. You are deciding to change your response to the world. Excuses weaken self-trust. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your confidence shrinks. You begin to doubt your own words. You tell yourself you'll wake up early, but you don't. You promise you'll start the project, but you delay it. Over time, your mind learns that your commitments are flexible, and that erodes self-respect. But the opposite is also true. When you remove excuses and follow through, even in small ways, you rebuild trust. You prove to yourself that you can act despite discomfort. That proof builds confidence far more than motivation ever could. It is important to understand that everyone has reasons. Everyone faces obstacles. Everyone experiences tiredness, doubt, and fear. The difference between those who grow and those who stay stuck is not the absence of challenges. It is the refusal to let challenges become excuses. You will never eliminate obstacles, but you can eliminate the habit of explaining why you cannot act. Start small. Choose one commitment each day and honor it. If you decide to work for 30 focused minutes, do it. If you decide to practice a skill, complete it. No negotiation, no justification. Action builds momentum, and momentum reduces resistance. Another powerful strategy is to change your language. Replace I have to with I choose to. Replace I can't with I'm learning how. These subtle shifts reframe responsibility. They remind you that you are in control of your response. The life you want will not respond to excuses. It responds to discipline. It responds to repeated action. It responds to standards that are higher than temporary feelings. Excuses feel safe, but they are expensive. They cost you growth. They cost you confidence. They cost you opportunity. If you want transformation, you must become intolerant of your own excuses. Notice them immediately. Challenge them directly. Replace them with action consistently, because success does not require perfection. It requires ownership. And the moment you stop explaining why you cannot and start executing despite discomfort, your entire direction begins to change. The most powerful voice in your life is not the one on television, not the one on social media, not even the one in your closest relationships. It is the voice inside your own mind. And if that voice constantly criticizes, doubts, and belittles you, it does not matter how many opportunities come your way. You will sabotage them before they bloom. Negative self-talk is one of the most destructive behaviors you can allow in your life. It is quiet and repetitive, deeply influential. It sounds like, I'm not good enough. I always mess things up, I'm behind. I can't do this. These thoughts may seem harmless, but when repeated daily, they shape your identity. Your brain believes what it hears consistently. If you constantly feed it limitation, it will create limited results. If you constantly speak fear, it will act from fear. If you constantly rehearse failure in your mind, you will hesitate when success requires courage. Deleting negative self-talk does not mean pretending challenges do not exist. It means refusing to attack your worth while facing them. There is a difference between constructive reflection and destructive criticism. Constructive reflection says, I made a mistake and I can learn from it. But destructive criticism says, I am the mistake. One empowers growth, the other destroys confidence. Many people do not realize how harsh they are with themselves. They say things internally that they would never say to someone they love, and yet they repeat those words daily as if punishment will somehow produce progress. But shame does not produce excellence. Encouragement does. If you want transformation, you must become aware of your internal dialogue. Notice your thoughts when you fail. Notice what you say to yourself when you are challenged. Awareness is the first step toward change. Once you notice the negative narrative, challenge it. Ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it helpful? Is it necessary? Often the answer is no. Negative self-talk is usually exaggerated, emotional, and rooted in fear rather than fact. Replace destructive thoughts with empowering truth. Instead of saying, I can't do this, say, I am learning how to do this. Instead of, I'm not disciplined, say, I am building discipline daily. These are not empty affirmations. They are intentional reframing statements that guide your brain toward growth instead of limitation. Your words matter because they influence your behavior. When you believe you are capable, you attempt more. When you believe you are incompetent, you hesitate. Confidence begins in thought long before it appears in action. Deleting negative self-talk also strengthens resilience. Life will challenge you. Mistakes will happen. Criticism will come. But if your internal voice is supportive instead of cruel, you will recover faster. You will adapt instead of collapse. You will try again instead of giving up. Understand this clearly. You cannot build a powerful future with a mind that constantly attacks you. Success requires courage, and courage cannot thrive in a hostile internal environment. Treat yourself with the same respect you expect from others. Encourage yourself the way you would encourage a friend. Hold yourself accountable, yes, but without humiliation. When you delete negative self-talk, you create space for clarity, confidence, and focus. You stop shrinking in moments of opportunity. You stop doubting your preparation. You begin acting with assurance. The transformation begins inside. Before the world sees your growth, you must believe in it. Before your results change, your inner conversation must change. Delete the voice that diminishes you. Strengthen the voice that guides you, because the story you tell yourself every day becomes the life you live. And when your mind becomes your ally instead of your enemy, everything begins to shift in your favor. There are behaviors in your life that do not explode dramatically. They simply exhaust you slowly. They drain your focus, weaken your confidence, and steal your momentum one small moment at a time. And the most dangerous part, you may have normalized them. Energy is your most valuable currency. Not time, not money, not talent. Energy. Because without energy, you cannot use your time wisely, build wealth effectively, or express your gifts fully. If you constantly feel tired, distracted, emotionally overwhelmed, or mentally scattered, it is not always because you are doing too much. Sometimes it is because you are tolerating too much. Energy draining patterns show up in many forms. Constant comparison, endless scrolling, overcommitting to please others, staying in conversations that exhaust you, replaying past mistakes in your mind, saying yes when you mean no. These behaviors may seem small, but repeated daily, they drain your inner power. You cannot build a focused, successful life while leaking energy in unnecessary directions. One of the most common drains is comparison. Measuring your progress against someone else's highlight reel will always leave you feeling behind. Comparison shifts your focus away from your own growth and places it on someone else's timeline. That distraction costs you clarity, and clarity is essential for progress. Another major energy drain is people-pleasing. When you constantly prioritize other people's comfort over your own growth, resentment builds. Your schedule becomes crowded with commitments that do not align with your goals. Protecting your energy sometimes requires disappointing others, and that is not selfish. It is strategic. Digital distraction is another silent thief. Hours lost scrolling through content that neither educates nor inspires you slowly chip away at your focus. Your mind becomes overstimulated but underproductive. You feel busy, but nothing meaningful moves forward. Cutting off unnecessary screen time is not about restriction. It is about reclaiming attention. Energy drains also exist internally. Holding on to guilt, replaying old failures, worrying about situations you cannot control. These patterns consume mental space, and mental space is required for creativity, strategy, and growth. You must decide that your future deserves more attention than your past. Cutting off energy draining patterns requires boundaries. Boundaries with technology, boundaries with people, boundaries with your own thoughts. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They protect what matters most. When you protect your energy, you think clearer. You act faster. You recover quicker. You stay focused longer. Productivity improves naturally because your attention is no longer scattered. It is also important to understand that energy is built through alignment. When your daily actions align with your values and goals, you feel purposeful. When they do not, you feel drained. Audit your habits honestly. Ask yourself, does this activity move me forward or pull me backward? Start eliminating one draining pattern at a time. You do not need to change everything overnight. Remove one unnecessary distraction. Set one firm boundary. Reduce one harmful habit. Small deletions create significant space. Remember this, you cannot rise to your highest level while constantly draining your own strength. Success requires focus. Focus requires energy. And energy must be protected intentionally. Your life will expand when your energy is concentrated on what truly matters. Cut off what drains you. Protect what fuels you. Be selective about what earns your attention, because when your energy is aligned, focused, and guarded, everything you build becomes stronger, clearer, and more powerful. Every transformation begins with a decision, not a wish, not a hope, a decision. And that decision is this: I will no longer accept less than what I am capable of becoming. Your life will rise or fall to the level of your standards, not your dreams, not your intentions, your standards. What you tolerate daily becomes your reality. If you tolerate inconsistency, you will experience unstable results. If you tolerate disrespect, you will experience diminished confidence. If you tolerate mediocrity, you will live beneath your potential. Raising your standards is not about arrogance. It is about alignment. It is about recognizing that your future deserves better than your current excuses, distractions, and habits. Standards determine behavior. When your standards are low, discipline feels optional. When your standards are high, discipline becomes natural. You no longer debate whether to act. You act because anything less feels unacceptable. The most successful individuals are not perfect. They simply refuse to compromise on certain principles. They refuse to compromise on effort. They refuse to compromise on integrity. They refuse to compromise on consistency. Their standards guide their decisions even when motivation fades. Protecting your future requires saying no more often. No to distractions. No to environments that shrink your ambition. No to habits that waste your time. Every no to what weakens you is a yes to what strengthens you. When you raise your standards, some people may not understand. They may call you intense. They may say you've changed. And they are right. You have changed. Growth requires evolution. And evolution often requires separation from what once felt normal. Your future is built in your present choices, not in grand gestures, but in repeated decisions. When you choose discipline over delay, you protect your goals. When you choose focus over distraction, you protect your progress. When you choose growth over comfort, you protect your potential. Standards also shape your identity. When you expect more from yourself, you naturally act differently. You speak differently. You think differently. You carry yourself differently. Confidence increases because you know you are honoring your potential. There is power in becoming selective. Selective about how you spend your time. Selective about who influences your mindset. Selective about what behaviors you allow to continue. Selectivity is not isolation. It is intention. Raising your standards does not mean becoming harsh with yourself. It means becoming disciplined with yourself. It means setting expectations that push you forward rather than hold you back. And here is the truth your future self is watching. The version of you who achieves the goals, who lives with clarity, who walks in confidence. That version is built by today's decisions. Every time you raise your standards, you move closer to that identity. Do not wait for life to demand excellence from you. Demand it from yourself. Delete the behaviors that limit you. Remove the patterns that weaken you. Cut off the habits that drain you. And then raise your standards so high that your actions have no choice but to rise with them. Because when your standards rise, your results follow. Protect your future fiercely. Guard your potential intentionally, and refuse to settle for anything less than the life you are capable of creating. That is how transformation becomes permanent. Growth is not complicated. It is courageous. It is the courage to delete what no longer serves you, the courage to confront your excuses, the courage to silence the voice that diminishes you, the courage to protect your energy, and the courage to raise your standards higher than your comfort. Transformation does not begin when life becomes easier. It begins when you become stronger in your decisions,